The Gnostic Gospel of Mary, Jeshua's wife. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode on the Level Up Spirit channel. Today, I'm very excited about this. This is actually one of the Gnostic texts that I thoroughly enjoy. It is one of the books that never made it into the Bible, of course, for several reasons it didn't make it in the Bible. Number one being, of course, it was a woman. And if you look at the New Testament, being majority Paul was very much anti-woman in many regards. You can see it in many of his writings where women weren't allowed in the church at the same time, weren't allowed to talk about the rules, the law, the religion. They weren't allowed to share those spiritual discourses with the men. So there was a lot involved with Paul not liking women, and that he was the one that was the Nicene Council leaned into when they started compiling the books. The other reason why this might not have made it into the Bible is because it's missing the first 3 chapters. The Dead Sea Scrolls, when they found this book, it was missing pages 1 through 6. And so it really does start with getting into chapter 4. So, and it's very interesting because there are words in here that seem like they're scientific words, but they're not used in a scientific way. For instance, the word matter. It sounds like they're talking about the physical matter that scientists would talk about, but they're just talking about the substance of the physical world. And yes, it is matter, but it's not the way they would have thought about it back then. So what I'd like to do is just go ahead and start with the first chapter, chapter 4, and just talk about some of these things that are in this text. The Savior said, "All nature, all formations, all creatures exist in and one with another. They will be resolved again into their own roots. For the nature of matter is resolved into the roots of its own nature alone. He who has ears to hear, let them hear." Peter said to him, "Since you have explained everything to us, tell us this also. What is the sin of the world?" The Savior said, "There is no sin, but it is you who make sin when you do the things that are like the nature of adultery, which is called sin. That is why the good came into the midst, to the essence of every nature, in order to restore it to its root." Then he continued and said, "This is why you become sick and die, for you are deprived of the one who can heal you. He who has a mind to understand, let him understand. Matter gave birth to a passion that has no equal, which proceeded from something contrary to nature. Then there arises a disturbance in the whole body. That is why I said to you, be of good courage, and if you are discouraged, be encouraged in the presence of different forms of nature. He who has ears, let him hear." When the Blessed One had said this, he greeted them all, saying, "Peace be with you. Receive my peace unto yourselves. Beware that no one lead you astray, saying, Lo here, or lo there, for the Son of Man is within you. Follow after him, for those who seek him will find him. Then go and preach the gospel of the kingdom. Lay not down any rules beyond what I appointed you, and do not give a law like the lawgiver, lest you be constrained by it." When he said this, he departed. So that's chapter 4. And there's a lot in chapter 4 that I want to talk about. The first part is the use of the word Savior. Savior is an interesting word because in Judaic prophecy, which this book was probably written by an early Judaic sect who was trying to use Jeshua as a Messiah. However, this book does not lean into the Messiah that much. The word Savior is really the only time it talks about him in that way. It's really kind of an interesting thing. But let's go to the first thing here. All nature, all formations, all creatures exist in and with one another. This is exactly what he taught. This is the oneness of God. This is everything is one. And the fact that this says this way is beautiful, but totally against what the modern Bible would tell you. Because the modern Bible depends upon God being external. And the last thing it says here, they will be resolved again in their own roots. In other words, they will go back to the oneness when they leave the physical form. They'll go back to God. So everything exists in and with one another, and they will resolve again into their own roots when they're done in this physical plane. And then the next line is, for the nature of matter is resolved into the roots of its nature alone. Because it's one, when the physical life ends, you go back to the one, right? Your awareness becomes more realized when you go back to the oneness of God. And then they say the line, he who has ears, let him hear, right? So this is just an ongoing thing you heard all the way throughout that chapter, was them saying, who wants to take this message will hear this message. It wasn't trying to force it down somebody. It was saying, if you have ears to hear this, if it feels true to you, which is something that I say all the time. Spirituality is a personal journey. If it feels true to you, follow it. If it doesn't feel true to you, don't follow it. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Same exact thing. Peter said to him, since you explained everything to us, tell us this. What is the sin of the world? Now, the concept of the sin is interesting because sin itself is missing the mark. What is the biggest sin? What is the thing that we did? And then it once again says, the Savior said, there is no sin. I want to say that again. There is no sin. But it is you who make sin when you do the things that are like the nature of adultery, which is called sin. So in other words, he's saying sin itself is a physical world construct. It's a world, we in this physical world have set it aside as sin. And in reality, when you do things like the nature of adultery. Now, the nature is the key part of this sentence, because the nature means that it is the intention of the adultery. The adultery, you know it to be not loving, you know it to be not kind, and there's an absolute intention there that is not loving. And what is the nature of sin? Sin means miss the mark. What is the mark you're missing? Love. And so this says very clearly that there is no sin, but then it also says that we make up sin in the physical world when we know we're doing something wrong. And so we call it a sin. When we know, we're aware, we have intention, and are doing something wrong, we knowingly call it sin. So we have set it aside as a transgression from love. And then it says, that is why the good, it does not say the God, that is why the good came into your midst, to the essence of every nature in order to restore it to its root. In other words, Jeshua is saying, I'm coming in to shake out all this belief about sin and dogma. I'm coming in to show you that it is not the reality of your life. And so, to me, that's a huge statement. That is why the good came into the midst, to the essence of every nature, in order to restore it to its root, to bring it back to a time prior to those beliefs. You must become a child to enter the kingdom of heaven, be born again, to bring it back to that space before you had all these constructs of the physical mind. And so that to me is beautiful. Then he continued and said, that is why you become sick and die, for you are deprived of the one who can heal you. Right? All fears and all transgression, all sins, all negative thought comes from fear. And no fear can exist in pure love. So when you step away from love and you're missing the mark, which is missing love, and you've gone away from it, that missing love is what makes you sick, which makes you ail. It's the thing that causes physical ailment. And I believe that what he's saying here is, this is why you become sick and die, for you are deprived of the one who can heal you. The one who can heal you is love. You're the source of all. No fear can exist in pure love, and all ailment comes from fear of some kind. And then he says, she says, he who has the mind to understand, let him understand. So once again, he's saying, if you understand, if this feels true to you, follow it. Matter gave birth to a passion that has no equal, which proceeded from something contrary to nature. Then there arises a disturbance in the whole body. Matter, the physical world itself was reacting to the transgression from love, and so it gave birth to this passion, this energy, this motion, this drive that was not loving. And that motion, the drive that was not loving, proceeds out, and it's contrary to your nature, because your nature is love. And then there arises a disturbance in the whole body. When you are acting outside of love, you are going to have ailment. You're going to have suffering. You're going to have struggles. That's what this statement says. That is why I said to you, be of good courage. If you are discouraged, be encouraged in the presence of different forms of nature. There's a lot in this one. Be of good courage. So in other words, don't fear. Don't fear. And if you are discouraged, be encouraged in the presence of different forms of nature. Get out into the world and see the world for what it is. See the beauty of everything around you, because it empowers you and emboldens you, and it brings you back to the nature of love, to get out and be in and among everyone and everything in the world and nature, sometimes even walking alone in the woods. Just get out and love. And love yourself by doing those things, and love others for just who they are. And you'll be of good courage, and if you are discouraged, be encouraged in the presence of different forms of nature. Different forms of nature. Just enjoy what's around you. He who has ears, let him hear. When the Blessed One had said this, he greeted them all, saying, peace be with you. Receive my peace unto yourselves. In other words, he was coming in with love and compassion, and giving love and compassion, and with the intention of giving that love and receiving that love. He's saying, receive my peace unto yourselves. Peace be with you. Receive my peace unto yourself. I am peaceful. I am joyful. I am loving. I am showing you this. Receive this peace unto yourself, and be in good heart. It's a beautiful, beautiful line. Beware that no one leads you astray, saying, lo here or lo there, for the Son of Man is within you. This is a great line, because the Son of Man, once again, they're trying to say this is many will say this is the separation of him is exalted. But in reality, he's saying you are the Son of Man. He says the Son of Man is within you. This line is the line that basically says, you're the same as me. I'm the Son of Man, you're the Son of the Man. The Son of Man is within you too. You are exactly what I am. And that's what this statement is. He says, beware the one to lead you astray. Beware that no one leads you astray, saying, look there, lo here, lo there. For the Son of Man is within you. You remember the quote that I usually quote from my regression. When you seek a path will be laid before you. But until you turn the path back to yourself, you never find the doorway. Don't be led astray by paths here and there. Come back to within you, to yourself. And then it says, follow after him. Now it says, follow after him. The word after is huge in this, because it's saying that someone is up there who has done what I'm doing, and I'm coming behind him, doing what he's doing as well. It's not that he's greater or higher. He's just leading the line. And so follow after him. And so by following after him, you are doing as he does. And that's a beautiful statement. Those who seek him will find him. And, that has come true. You will, when you find love, when you find that expression, you're finding Jeshua. You're finding, you're finding God. You're finding the people you love in your life. That's why, I hear, when I'm writing my books, I hear my mom's laughter when I'm writing my book. My friend Bill and we loved each other. Every so often, I feel him hug me, and he was a wonderful guy. When you realize that you're coming back to that oneness of God, and he is in the oneness of God, and you're in the oneness of God, you will find not only him but everyone else as well. Then go then and preach the gospel of the kingdom. Basically, go tell everybody. Go tell everybody that they're divine. Go tell everybody that you have that you have the same ability that Jeshua had. Go tell everybody that they have the power within them to go within. The Son of Man is within you. Go tell everybody. Everything that he did is within you. Go tell everybody. Do not lay down any rules beyond what I have appointed you, and do not give a law like the lawgiver, lest you be constrained by it. When he said this, he departed. This is Mary writing this about Jeshua, right? Do not lay down any rules. That's exactly what every Christian faith did. It's exactly what Paul did. Do not lay down any rules beyond what I have appointed you. And the only thing that is appointed in this chapter is tell people that everything's within them. Tell people that it's all within you. Everything you need is within you. That's what this chapter says, right? Do not lay down extra laws. Do not wrap extra things around it. Don't give it dogma. Don't give it ritual. Don't say you have to do this or you have to do that. Just tell everybody it's within them. It's one of the most beautiful chapters of this Gnostic text, and I'm fascinated by it. Let's move on to chapter 5. But they were grieved. They wept greatly, saying, how shall we go to the Gentiles and preach the gospel of the kingdom of the Son of Man? If they do not spare him, how will they spare us? Then Mary stood up, greeted them, and said to her brethren, do not weep, do not grieve, nor be irresolute, for his grace will be entirely with you and protect you. But rather, let us praise his greatness, for he has prepared us and made us into men. When Mary said this, he turned their hearts to the good, and they began to discuss the words of the Savior. Peter said to Mary, Sister, we know that the Savior loved you more than the rest of women. Tell us the words of the Savior, which you remember, which you know, but we do not, nor have we heard them. Mary answered and said, This is hidden from you. I will proclaim to you. She began to speak to them these words. She said, I saw the Lord in a vision, and said to him, Lord, I saw you today in a vision. He answered and said to me, Blessed are you that you did not waver at the sight of me, for where the mind is, there is the treasure. I said to him, Lord, how does he who sees the vision see it, through the soul or through the spirit? The Savior answered and said, He does not see through the soul nor through the spirit, but the mind that is between the two. That is what sees the vision. It is. And then this next pages 11 through 14 are missing from this manuscript. So chapter 5 is a great chapter. It's a short one because we've lost some pages at the end of it, but there's some great things in here that really need to stand out. They were afraid because Jeshua had just been killed for this teaching. Jeshua had just been crucified for this teaching. So they were afraid to go to the Gentiles, which was basically the Romans and the people who had a different belief, and they were afraid to go talk to them for fear that they would be crucified. It says, but they were grieved. They wept greatly, saying, how shall we go to the Gentiles and preach the gospel of the kingdom of the Son of Man? Kingdom of the Son of Man. In other words, men, not deities, not gods. The kingdom of the Son of Man. In other words, the empowerment of man. And, of course, that is man with the all-inclusive women, right? If they spare not him, how will they spare us? Mary stood up. Now, Mary, I want to say that Mary was a beautiful, loving person and was also a very strong person. And after the crucifixion, she was very broken, but I'm sure that she recovered in some form. But the last time I saw her in my regression, she was a very broken woman. Then Mary stood up, greeted them all, and said to her brethren, brethren is a big word there, brethren, family. So this was her family. The group around her was her family. Said to her brethren, do not weep, do not grieve, nor be irresolute, for his grace will be entirely with you and will protect you. She's basically saying, don't be irresolute. Don't stick with your truth, because your truth will set you free. Your truth will protect you. In reality, Jeshua's truth was one of basically handing off this truth to those to carry forward. And so this was a total belief that they would not be harmed. But, of course, we know historically they all but John were harmed. But, they were very astute in their belief. And she was especially astute in her belief because she was so close to him. But rather let us praise his greatness, for he has prepared us and made us into men. There's a lot in this statement historically. Let us praise his greatness. She does not say deify him as a God. It says he's a great man who showed us great things. It's not putting him on a pedestal of worship. It's a matter of saying, let's just say, he was a great man. And let's praise his greatness. For he has prepared us. Prepared us is huge because what have I been saying? I've been saying that he sent the information out to the world. He prepared them to go spread this information, to go send it out into the world. So this is exactly what she's saying here. And made us men. This line is massively huge because she's including herself in that. She's raising herself to the stature of a man in the time of a patriarchal society. He has raised us up as men. And so she's basically saying, she's speaking as an equal to men, which is huge because in that time period, that would never have been allowed. But in this group, she could be herself. She could be an equal because that's what Jeshua taught, which was against the Judaic law, which was against the laws of Paul. She actually is saying, I'm equal to you. I'm also the exalted man. And so made us into men. So she's literally saying we're equal in this group. And so that tells you right there, Jeshua wasn't following Judaic law or that Paul was teaching what Jeshua taught. When Mary said this, she turned their hearts into the good. and they began to discuss the words of the Savior. She turned their hearts to the good. She turned their hearts to the good. She got them out of their fears and the anxiety, put them on the path of, okay, we're doing good things, we're doing loving things. And then they began to discuss what Jeshua taught. They began to talk about it and get it really clear, so their message would be not only clear, but on the same page. So they all understood what the teachings were. So they sat and they discussed the words of the Savior. Savior, once again, being the messianic thing that's added in there. Paul said to Mary, "Sister, we know that the Savior loved you more than the rest of women." So this is really letting you know that she has been set aside. I remember her being called Ishti, which means wife. And so she's, in my opinion, she's his wife. But in this text right here, we know that the Savior loved you more than the rest of women. He's saying, he's gone now, but we know how much he loved you. He was telling her how much Jeshua loved her. This is a beautiful gesture to let her know how loved she was and how important she was. The next line, tell us the words of the Savior, which you remember, which you know, but we do not, for nor have we heard them. So basically, he's saying you had such a close relationship. You had conversations that we weren't around for. You were so close, and you were so inside. You were his wife. Tell us what he taught, what he taught you, or showed you that no one else might have seen. Mary answered and said, "What is hidden from you, I will proclaim to you." Basically, I'll tell you all I know. I'll tell you everything I have. And she began to speak to them in these words. She said, I saw the Lord in a vision, and I said to him, Lord, I saw you today in a vision. And he answered me and said to me. There are many people who tell me they've seen Jeshua in a vision. I took the picture of the church in Norway, and his face showed up in the picture. Right? He shows up in vision, especially if you're open to it. If you're just open to it. And let's get to the next line, because that is a huge line. Blessed are you that you did not waver at the sight of me, for where the mind is, there is the treasure. Let me say that again. Blessed are you that did not waver at the sight of me, did not fall into your fear. For where the mind is, there is the treasure. The mind is what drops into fear. Because by controlling their fear, by controlling your anxiety, and controlling your mind, you are creating from a conscious creation. That's what this is talking about. You did not drop into your fears and anxiety. You stayed clear. You turned the other cheek. You remained meek. And you did not get afraid. You did not get angry. You stayed with the course and used your mind to move through this. I said to him, Lord, how does he who sees the vision see it? Through the soul or through the spirit? The Savior answered and said, he does not see through the soul nor the spirit, but the mind that is between the two. That is what sees the vision. It is, and then we lose this next piece here. He's saying that we see through our conscious thought. We see through the mind, right? Our mind, as I've often said, creates from our belief. And our belief is what's shown to us in the world around us. So our minds, Mary was wanting to see Jeshua, and she appeared to him in a vision because her mind formed the vision around his consciousness for her to see him, right? And I saw you in a vision day. He answered and said to me. So this is really it. She saw him in this vision, right? Then he answered. How did he answer? Through thoughts, words. It came through the same way that any channel would do that. You know, when I do my private sessions, I exhale and information comes through. What's it coming through? It's coming through my mind. It's coming through my consciousness. You know, that's how we get our information, through our mind, through our consciousness. And our consciousness, our mind, can create visions into this illusion, whereas this actual text says the matter. And so we are creating from that space through the mind. Let's move on to the next chapter that's hopefully complete. So chapter 8 is missing verse 1 through 9, so we're going to start on verse 10. And Desire said, I do not see you descending, but now I see you ascending. Why do you lie, since you belong to me? The soul answered and said, I saw you. You did not see me nor recognize me. I served you as a garment, and you did not know me. When it said this, the soul went away rejoicing greatly. Again it came to the third power, which is called ignorance. The power questioned the soul, saying, Where are you going? In wickedness you are bound, but you are bound. Do not judge. And the soul said, Why do you judge me, although I have not judged? I was bound, though I have not bound. I was recognized, but I have recognized that all is being dissolved, both the earthly things and the heavenly. When the soul had overcome the third power, it went upwards and saw the fourth power, which took 7 forms. The first form is darkness, the second desire, the third ignorance, the fourth is the excitement of death, fifth is the kingdom of the flesh, the sixth is the foolish wisdom of the flesh, and the seventh is wrathful wisdom. These are the 7 powers of wrath. They asked the soul, Whence do you come, slayer of men? Or where are you going, conqueror of space? The soul answered and said, What binds me has been slain, and what turns me about has been overcome. My desire has been ended, and my ignorance has died. In an eon, I was released from the world, and in a type, from the fetter of oblivion, which is transient. From this time on, I will attain the rest of the time, of the season, of the eon, in silence. So this chapter is all about the many manifestations of fear. And it's, well, like I said, we missed the first 9 verses. So it starts with desire speaking, the desire being one of the many fears. We desire things because we fear not having them. We fear the lack of them. And desire said, I did not see you descending, but now I see you ascending. Why do you lie, since you belong to me? Basically, the desire sees the rising above that fear. They sees the soul that they're discussing in this rising above that fear. And in rising above that fear, desire tries to tempt you back. And we know that the word Satanis means temptation. So it's trying to tempt you back with these desires, these earthly things that pull you back. You know, even the Bible quote, the love of money is the root of many evils. The desire to be wealthy can seduce you into harming men for money. So it comes down harming a man or a woman, harming people for money. The soul answered and said, I saw you. You did not see me or recognize me. I served you as a garment, and you did not know me. So basically, the soul is basically saying, I don't need you. And I was there, and people were desiring what I was giving and bringing, but you did not recognize me, who was serving you this love, this compassion, this way of being without your fears. But you didn't recognize me. You wore me like a garment, and instead of hearing what I was saying, you were literally wearing me, saying, "Look at me, I'm this, I'm that." In the Sermon on the Mount, they talk about a big section. It's talking about the vanity, standing on street corners, showing how pious people were in their religion. And they said that they're not actually making it to heaven because they got all their rewards and their riches on that street corner when people started praising them for how pious they were. So this is about the vanity of the world. Desire, you get lost in your desires, and you miss the real message. When it said this, the soul went away rejoicing greatly. Again, it came to the third power, which is called ignorance. The power questioned the soul, saying, "Where are you going? In wickedness are you bound? But you are bound. Do not judge." And the soul said, "Why do you judge me, although I have not judged?" So Jeshua got judged. Jeshua got judged and has been bound. But he didn't judge others. He never said the Romans are bad. He never said, everybody wanted them to. He never said the Romans are bad. Never said the Jewish sects were bad. He said love one another. And he never judged, but he had been judged. He had been bound. And he had been crucified. And then in the next line he says, "I was bound, though I have not bound. I have not in any way, shape, or form done a transgression to another. And yet I was bound because of the fears, because of the anxieties, because of the stresses. I was not recognized, but I have recognized that all is being dissolved, both the earthly and the heavenly." He's bringing everything to one, and he's recognizing that the things that are happening to him are part of the changes that are coming. And the changes that are coming are the stripping away of all these earthly desires and fears and anxieties and coming back into the oneness. Now, once again, we go back up to the top one here. It says, you belong to me. Desire said, you belong to me. When those fears and anxieties and temptations lash out like that, what happens next? Well, what happens next is they literally start getting loud, which is exactly what's happening in our society right now. They start getting loud. They start saying things just to say things, but have no real direction towards anything positive. They're just focused on negative because they're the ones who are in the fear and the anxiety and the stresses. And it's the same thing here. And because the world is shifting into a more loving space, they're going to get louder and louder. The people who are focused on the negatives and who are, in many cases, becoming wealthy by the negatives. When the soul had overcome the third power, it went upwards and saw the fourth power, which took 7 forms. Now, ancient Judaic sects loved their numbers: 12, 7, 3. A lot of them are very big, into their number forms. So the fact that they're specifically saying a number here is probably very historic. The first form is darkness. The second, desire. The third is ignorance. The fourth is the excitement of death. The excitement, the fear of it, the anxiety of it, the stresses of it. The valley of the shadow of death, right? The fifth is the kingdom of the flesh. Being here and succumbing to the primal nature of sex, and not that sex is in any way, shape, or form bad. It can be a loving gesture, but it can also be used in an addictive nature as well. The kingdom of the flesh. The sixth is the foolish wisdom of the flesh. And the seventh is the wrathful wisdom. Using your whatever information you have to lord over others and harm others. And then it says these are the 7 powers of wrath. What is wrath? Wrath is vengeance. Wrath is anger. Wrath is subjugating others. And so these are the powers that they use over others. They asked the soul, "Whence do you come, slayer of men? Or where are you going, conqueror of space?" Whence do you come, slayer of men? Or where are you going, conqueror of space? Is it, are you, are you a slayer of men, or are you a conqueror of the world, of the universe, of God, of consciousness, of everything around you? Are you someone who's down there to harm in the physical, or are you going up and stepping into another greater, higher level of self? The soul answered and said, "What binds me has been slain, and what turns me about has been overcome." It's basically saying, I've overcome all of these things that you're struggling with. I've overcome them. Take heart, I've overcome the world, right? That's in the Bible. So, I've overcome them. I'm showing you the way. And the next line is, and my desire has been ended, and my ignorance has died. In an eon I was released from the world, and in a type, and from the fetter of oblivion, which is transient. He's basically saying all these things that you're dealing with can be shed, can be left behind. They don't have to travel with you. They can be transient. They can stay. You can leave them behind. And I've released from the world in a type from a type, and in a type from a type, and in the fetter of oblivion, which is transient. The oblivion, you get lost in all that. You wander in the wilderness. You're in oblivion because you're not really coming back to that oneness of self. You're out there in the middle of nothing, but you come back and you've overcome that, and now you're the conqueror. You're the one who has come in and said, "Okay, I understand. I am one with God. I am the expression of God, and I've overcome my fears, my anxieties." The Buddha said, "The secret to enlightenment is the eradication of fear." That's what this is talking about. From this time on, I will attain to the rest of the time of the season of the eon in silence. I no longer have to struggle. I no longer have to be mad, sad, frustrated, angry. And from this point on, I will live in peaceful silence, without the anxieties, without the stresses that are riddling my mind with thoughts that are harming my very peaceful nature. Chapter 9. When Mary had said this, she fell silent, since it was to this point that the Savior had spoken with her. But Andrew answered and said to the brethren, "Say what you wish to say about what she has said. I, at least, do not believe the Savior said this, for certainly these teachings are strange ideas." Peter answered and spoke concerning these same things. He questioned them about the Savior. Did he really speak privately with a woman and not openly to us? Are we to turn about and all listen to her? Did he prefer her to us? Then Mary wept and said to Peter, "My brother Peter, what do you think? Do you think I have thought this up myself in my heart, or that I am lying about the Savior?" Levi answered and said to Peter, "Peter, you have always been hot-tempered. Now I see you contending against the woman like the adversaries. But if the Savior made her worthy, who are you indeed to reject her? Surely the Savior knows her very well. That is why he loved her more than us, rather than let us be ashamed and put on the perfect man, and separate as he commanded us, and preach the gospel, not laying down any other rule or any other law beyond what the Savior said." And when they heard this, they began to go forth to proclaim and preach. So obviously this is going to sound very familiar to a lot of the women out there in the world, men subjugating women. But let's look at this. So the first thing, Mary said this, she fell silent because she had said everything. You'll notice in what she had said, the simplicity of it. There was no Judaic law that she was touting. There was no rules of Paul that she was touting. She was simply speaking about the simplicity of the oneness with God and overcoming your fears and anxieties. That's the simplicity of Jeshua's teachings. But Andrew, obviously very much a believer in Judaic law, says, say what you wish to say about what she said. I, at least, do not believe that the Savior said this. For certainly these teachings are strange ideas, right? So basically, because they're negating the Judaic laws, they're negating all of the the Torah and all that information, it makes Andrew angry, right? And then Peter jumps right in. He said the same things. He questioned that, did he really speak privately to a woman and not openly to us? This is historically accurate because there was no way in that time period a woman had that kind of power. And here she is saying things that were completely antithetical to their upbringing. And so there was this huge struggle. But let's go on because there's some good stuff in here. Are we all to turn about and all listen to her? Did he prefer her to us? Right? He basically is saying she's no better than us. In fact, she's less than us. We're better than she is. Why would we listen to her? She's a woman. This is a really horrible statement from Peter. Peter, who became the head of the Roman church, right? Then Mary wept and said to Peter, "My brother Peter," once again, my family, my brother, "what do you think? Do you think I thought this up myself in my heart, or that I'm lying about the Savior? Can't you hear that in a argument today? I could totally hear that exact statement spoken aloud in an argument today. Absolutely. Levi, what a wonderful guy Levi ended up being. He was the protector of Mary in this situation. Answered and said to Peter, "Peter, you have always been hot-tempered. You watch any of the videos that I've done about Peter, I said the exact same thing. He was stern, tough, mean. He was very like a staunch defender, right? He wasn't a nice guy. He didn't come across as a nice guy. He came across as a tough guy and hot-tempered. Now I see you contending against the woman like the adversaries. Adversaries. He literally is saying the Judaic people who are teaching that women are less than men are our adversaries. He's literally saying we're going against the laws of Judaism. We're going against the rules. You're actually contending against the woman like an adversary, like the adversaries with the word "the." He's comparing Peter to the religious sects that are trying to convince them not to follow the teachings of Jeshua. And Levi is sticking up for her. He follows up. But if the Savior made her worthy, who are you indeed to reject her? Surely the Savior knows her very well. Well, I would say he knows her very well. It was his wife. So, and he's basically saying, you know her. You know who she is. You know that she was the most important thing in Jeshua's life, his wife. And you know who she is, and you're rejecting her because she's a woman now when Jeshua's gone? I mean, this is ridiculous. And he says, the Savior knows her very well. That is why he loved her more than us. Rather, let us be ashamed and put on the perfect man. In other words, come back to your senses. Come back to what Jeshua showed us. Be the perfect man who believed in the equality of man and woman. Be the perfect man who walks into this world seeing people for people and not judging people by race, sex, gender, or anything else. Be the perfect man. And the next line is, and separate as he commanded us and preach the gospel. This is what I've been saying about why he went to the cross. Remember I said, he took the disciples, he said, you go here, you go here, you go here, you go here, you go here. Get separate. Go away from each other and teach this so that the word can spread, so that the information can get out into the world. So he's saying, leave her alone. She obviously knows what she's talking about. She was his wife. Now let's get out of here. Let's go do what he told us to do and teach this everywhere and trust that this is true. And what he says here, separate as he commanded us and preach the gospel, not laying down any other rule or other law beyond what the Savior said. I'm going to say that again. Preach the gospel, not laying down any other rule or other law beyond what the Savior said. The Savior said, love one another. Savior said, we are one, according to Mary. Savior said that it's the simplicity of being equal and one and loving one another and not having fear. That's the basic gist of what the Savior said. He didn't say all the baptize in water and eat the wafer and drink the blood and all the stuff that has become the dogmas and the rituals and all that stuff. It was added on. That was all the law and other rules that you had to follow. Don't eat meat on Friday. Never said that. It was a rule that was added on. So the churches have strayed very far away from the teachings of Jeshua. And in being so far away from the teachings of Jeshua, they're lost in those 7 fears and anxieties. They're peddling those fears and anxieties. You look at the televangelist who has his congregation buy him his second private jet. That's lust. That's the love of money. That's not being one with your congregation, right? That's not living in peaceful harmony with the oneness of all. That's setting yourself apart and having the love of money. These are the false prophets they're talking about. And when they heard this, they began to go forth and proclaim and to preach. That is when they left, after Mary told them this new piece of information. And they went on. And the information she gave wasn't new. It was what if you go back and just look at the rest of the gospel, it's exactly what he taught all the time. And it's in teaching it all the time, all she really did was bring it down to a very concise form that would be easier. Because if you go back up again, it says, basically, let's sit down and talk about what he taught. And so they're getting everybody on the same page. And she brought it down to a very concise form. And see, there you go teach that. So this has been the gospel of Mary Magdalene, the wife of Jeshua. And I think you see in this a woman who was dealing with the men of her time. I think you see in this a woman who was very empowered and understood the teachings very well. A woman who was in a society that was where women were being subjugated, but in her group, she had a family there. But even in the group, there were people who were leaning into that patriarchy and that male dominance. And yet she still spoke her truth. She is one of the bravest individuals in the world. And my memory of her from my regression is laughing with her, enjoying being around her. I loved her to death. I loved her like a sister. I loved her like Jeshua, right? She was an amazing individual. And this text proves it. This text proves it. But it also shows the struggle she had with the men of her time. And so let's go out in the world and love one another and understand that our oneness and overcome our fears and anxieties. And especially, let's treat people of all genders equally, because that is the teaching. When she said, he has made us men, she literally is saying we are all equal. So lean into that and go out in the world and love one another. You guys have a great time, a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. The Level Up Spirit channel is solely funded by your generous donations and purchases of private readings and merchandise. Please go to johnofnew.com or use the donation link below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment.